authorized to tell you jack shit, but just trust me, you dumb fuck. Normally, I don't believe those news stories. Most often, it seems to be sensationalistic nonsense, but this one, in my personal opinion, is entirely plausible. Supposedly, Trump comes out, and he likes to do this. He likes to get ahead of anyone else's reactions to proposals by sort of forcing them into a situation where they have to straddle the line between accepting the proposal, at least tacitly, or rejecting it and then angering him, and then he can thunder at them for a while. This is what he did to Netanyahu. He came out ahead of Netanyahu saying anything to the world with regards to the potential brokered peace agreement with the release of hostages by Hamas and so forth. And he said, well, yeah, the Israelis really like the idea, and Hamas is on board, and everything's fine, hunky-dory, basically. Netanyahu, meanwhile, has more reservations than that. Very quickly came out and said, well, there are still things to hammer out. When the hostages are released, then we can negotiate further. And then apparently talked to Donald Trump on the phone, right? And he said, well, I'm not really happy with every element of this deal. And apparently Trump told him, you're always so fucking negative, just take it, it's a victory. That's hysterical. Under normal circumstances, again, I don't believe unsourced, attributed quotes from Trump or anyone else. It doesn't matter, by the way, what their political affiliation is, what country they're from, none of that matters. You get a lot of this within the legacy media's plethora of tripe, so to speak. But this one is totally believable. This is exactly how I think that Trump would react in such a situation. You're always so fucking negative. Can you imagine how fucking funny that'd be? Oh, to have a recording of this particular call. And it probably does exist. This one is believable. It's plausible, because it's sort of the way that Trump tends to act. Man, that would be so funny. That would be the quote that launched 1,000 memes. Well, more than 1,000, I'm sure. It's believable. And this is how you need to deal with diplomacy sometimes. You say, like, suck it up, dude. You're getting your hostages back. This was one of your main pledges to the Israeli people, especially to the grieving families that are still there. They're waiting for, in some cases, the charnel remains of their loved ones. And in most cases, hopefully, survivors. I mean, they've been probably brutally tortured this entire time, but we'll see. And that was one of the main pledges that Netanyahu made. If the hostages are released and negotiations continue and things calm down, that's already more than one small step towards, getting the peace process done. Again, as someone, I'm not Team Palestine, I'm not Team Israel. I don't have skin in the game because it's not even my continent. But if you're going to throw your diplomatic weight behind trying to stop a major conflict, tens of thousands of people have been killed. Civilians, soldiers, Hamas members, everyone under the sun. Tens of thousands of people have been splattered already. I think, didn't they say the death toll had approached 60,000 or something like that in the Gaza Strip? That's a substantial chunk of the population. I mean, that's like 3 Rutlands. So that's a lot of death. It's a lot of people to bury in a relatively small geographic area, by the way. Helpfully, a lot of them are already buried in rubble anyway, so I suppose you just leave it there as a monument or something like that. But this actually happens. There are still monuments like that in Afghanistan after the war against the Soviets over there in the early 1980s. Tanks stacked up one on top of each other as sort of like little obelisks and shit like that. Apparently this is decorative to some people. I don't know. I'm more into Art Nouveau and stuff like that. I like a little nature as opposed to piles of burned out tanks, but that's just me. And Trump is telling Netanyahu not to be negative. This, by the way, marks the first time that we've had a president of the United States who was serious about applying pressure to Israel. For all of the Zion Dawn memes and all that bullshit, because, oh my God, Trump hasn't nuked Jerusalem yet, clearly he's the enemy. Give him credit where credit's due. We've had 2 other presidents in modern history that have even tacitly criticized the Israeli administration in even the most mundane and mild of ways. Barack Obama, who said, well, I think you need to calm down, and didn't do anything about it. And then Biden, who said, well, come on, man, you gotta play nice, and didn't do anything about it. In fact, it was his mismanagement that led to Hamas having the ability to stage such an incursion in the first place. So they don't really count because they never did anything about the situation. Trump took the fore, is doing something about the situation, is attempting to prevent further calamity within that region on either side, and people will still castigate him for it. Well, you make war? Well, then you've sold out, oh my god, globalist interests. You don't want to make war? You want to stop a war from happening? Oh my god, well, you're just a sellout, you're an evil person. The left will go after him for not giving more aid to the Palestinians, and the neocons will go after him for criticizing Israel. Their sacred cow, because most of them are dual citizens, I've noticed. So they have a real big problem with the situation, and Trump walks that thankless tightrope too, because he's going to try to hammer things out while literally everyone is bitching at him, without even really knowing more broadly the situation. Like most of the people complaining about Trump's efforts, they don't know anything about foreign diplomacy. They don't know anything about the history of the region. They just don't know. They're just completely ignorant. They've never cracked open, I guess, a couple of anthropological works or anything like that. This was exactly what led me to understand why Biden's movement of the withdrawal date in Afghanistan would pan out so poorly. To anyone who understood anything about the culture and the civics over there in Afghanistan, they had to have known, if they had any wisdom at all, that it would be a bad idea. It's basically the equivalent of making a deal with someone and then saying, oh yeah, well, I'll get to it later. Yeah, I know I was going to offer you $50 for this object here, but I can only do 30. I'm really sorry about that. Doesn't fly in certain parts of the world. The same thing is true in Palestine and Israel. That's why you have to hammer out a long-term formal agreement. But you have to get the hostages first. Netanyahu's made that clear. Hamas has been apparently, generally speaking, willing to do so. And so that hopefully that jumpstarts the process towards more peace. Neocons don't want it because neocons don't like peace. They love war. They make a lot of money off of it. And the left doesn't want peace because they want Israel eradicated and they want basically a free Palestine sort of stuff. So he's got that thankless job. But to say to Netanyahu to his face, "Oh, so fucking negative." Just fucking calm down, dude. That's pretty ballsy, and it's really, really funny too. And in this particular instance, I'm going to hope that this is true, and I find it to be at the very least plausible. Seems exactly like the sort of thing that Trump would say when somebody tries to countermand him when he's already made a public speech on the subject. That's about all. Peace out. Oh yeah, and I've got to do the Greta Thunberg story actually too. Should I put it in the live stream and make it a standalone, or do both?
Probably both.
Yeah. I don't normally like to repeat news items, but sometimes they're so
Sometimes
funny.
it's so funny, right?
Let's see, where's I've got so many fucking tabs here though. I've got to do drunken Kamala. All right, everyone, it appears that Kamala Harris is back on the sauce again, as though she ever got off of it. Link in the description, not archived, of course, just a video clip from End Wokeness. This is Kamala Harris addressing some of her remaining fans, and she starts rambling about how Trump has no mandate. That's not a mandate, not a mandate! And she's, like, going off and doing the strong, empowered woman thing. This reminds me of Hillary Clinton after her loss in the 2016 election. You remember, she went on her months-long apology tour blaming everybody but herself for her loss and proceeded to completely obfuscate basic reality, and most of what she said either didn't make sense or wasn't true. And so she was like blaming feminist voters and the DNC and everybody else but herself. At least Kamala, I hate to give her credit where credit is due. She does have one legit grievance, and that's that the party was not working with her campaign very well, partially because of last-minute organization, and partially because a lot of people just really didn't want her in office. And you can tell, the Bidens were happy when she lost. And I don't blame them, honestly. Kamala would have been Can you imagine Kamala Harris trying to govern the country under the current circumstances? Well, you certainly wouldn't have enhanced border control, that's for sure. The legacy media would namby-pamby her for a short time before realizing that she's so toxic even they can't defend her. At least with Joe, they could say, well, he's old. He's not infirm. He's totally mentally with it. I mean, he trips all the time and staggers around not knowing where he is, but they could shield him for the most part until his disastrous debate performance. I don't think they'd be as successful with Kamala Harris, because she wouldn't have old age to hide behind. Because she's like, 60 or something like that. So she can't hide behind elderly status for that sort of thing. She clearly is inebriated here, and try to convince me that she's not loaded. You will fail at convincing me that that is the case. In fact, it's not actually the case. Let's put it that way. She's like, this was the closest election of the 21st century. Yeah, no mandate, no mandate. But you're wrong. You're objectively wrong. You lost the popular vote. You lost every swing state by significant margins, far worse than you lost that the Dems lost in 2016, although the map looked the same, basically. You had a huge swing of various groups of voters, young males, Hispanic voters, black voters, female a swing in virtually every voting bloc went forward towards Trump away from what had been the Hillary Biden sort of consensus within the Democratic Party. It wasn't a close election. You lost. You lost massively. Unlike Hillary Clinton, who at least could bitch about the fact that she won the popular vote, which, by the way, under an electoral system, means relatively less. That's sort of the point, to prevent the tyranny of the majority, so to speak, because we're supposed to hold together 50 contiguous states and several territories that don't always agree with one another. They are the sovereign states, actually. The United States is nothing more than a federalized moniker under which all of the other states have hoisted their collective banners. Most people don't understand. The United States is technically 50 different countries. It's an empire. Never mind. But she's drunk. She's clearly drunk here. She's making apologies for herself and trying to cheapen, Trump. But she's just basically latching on. She's hitching her horse to the same wagon that every liberal commentator and all the leftoids and so forth are. They're like, Trump is waging war against the United States, and they have all this footage of people rappelling out of helicopters and lurid tales of people being beaten in the streets, which by and large is not happening unless they get into a tangle with some Trenderoago or something like that, in which case, yeah, there's violence. Believe it or not, when left-wing rioters decide to start throwing shit at ICE agents and stuff, eventually they're going to respond. This happens all the time. It doesn't even matter who's doing the protesting / rioting or what law enforcement service happens to be involved at the time. I mean, are you completely brain dead? Oh yeah, let me just walk up with this baseball bat and hit this soldier in the head. That'll go over real well, and they always act really surprised when they're detained, like when they've done something clearly illegal, and then they get detained, and usually they just get a slap on the wrist anyway. These people get so frightened because a lot of them, I guess they've never been inside of a jail cell. Try doing that in New Orleans. Spend a couple days down there with the good old boys. You'll have a great time. Till you see what's for lunch, then you will not have a good time. I think we should send Greta Thunberg down to Orleans Parish for a week or so. I think she'd very quickly knock off her stupid activities, by the way, if she's complaining about conditions in an Israeli prison. I think I'd probably rather be there, honestly. This is hysterical, watching Kamala get plastered. And she is plastered. She usually is, but here she looks a little bit more inebriated than normal. It's like, instead of having 2 shots of whiskey for breakfast, she decided to switch to tequila today and then just downed the whole bottle. That's basically what she looks like. She can barely stand, actually. Joe Biden had that problem, but that's because he was old and infirm. With Kamala, by, at least political standards, she's relatively young. It's pretty sad when late 50s, early 60s is conceived of as being a spring chicken, but that seems to have been what we've devolved into, especially within Congress, of all places. But she's just, fried, out of her mind, blaming everyone but herself, as usual. I mean, she's done this on numerous occasions before, but this is probably the funniest one. Yeah, her infinite wisdom. Drunken Kamala staggers out onto the stage to ramble about how the dude who won the popular vote doesn't have any form of mandate. Well, let's see. Won the electoral vote, won the popular vote, won bigly with numerous voting blocks that never really leaned even close to Republican before, snatching away almost 40% of the fucking Hispanic vote, despite supposedly being vehemently racist against people of Mexican origin. You remember the Trump Tower Taco Bowl thing? That was pretty funny. And people took that as a racist dog whistle. It's like, he's eating Mexican food, dude. That's not an indicator of racism. Now, if he had, fried chicken and watermelon and grape drink out on the desk, and he's like, we're celebrating Black History Month the right way. Okay, then you can say that if it's not just completely tongue-in-cheek, it might have racial overtones. But eating a taco bowl, I've had them. I don't hate Mexican food. I like making Mexican food sometimes. But Kamala's so drunk, if she ate one of the Trump Tower taco bowls, she'd puke it all up over the stage. They'd look at the colors in it and say, oh, it kind of looks like a pride flag. Oh, she's celebrating Pride Month or something. They would still make excuses for her. Her political career, though, to be a little bit less glib, her political career is over. She's not going to be back into politics. She's definitely not going to be president of the United States. Lord help the fucking Democrats if they are nuts enough to actually allow her to run. And they might not be able to stop her. Gavin is like a shark in the water smelling blood right now. He's circling around waiting for his chance to strike. We all know this. He has presidential ambitions. I don't think that he can pull it off, thankfully. But with Kamala, she definitely can't pull it off. But if she runs, and you don't have a dark horse candidate and or Gavin stands down, she might very well be the Democratic nominee the next time around. This would be utterly hilarious, by the way. It would be, can you imagine the debates between her and likely J.D. Vance? Can you imagine how funny that would be? We'll definitely be doing some more political live streams around that time if it happens. That's about all. Peace out. I want my boots. I want my boots. I need to be clashing me some new kickers. I'll go smoking a minute.
Yes.
Let's take a break after the second video. Plus, I gotta prepare for the ultimate funny one with Greta. Yeah, the dumb and probably false allegation is that they were dragging her by her hair.
I saw that.
Made her kiss the Israeli flag. I'm assuming they don't have enough vegetarian options. How sad. Go to Orleans Parish, Greta. That'd be funny. Infiltrate her group of retards and get them to go to New Orleans to protest for some inane reason and get arrested.